The Board of District Technology meeting is convening at 9 a.m. on December 2nd, 2020 at the Health Licensing Office in Salem, Oregon by telephone conference. I will now call the roll. Clayton Reese is here. Mills?
Here.
Christopher?
Here.
Grant?
Here.
And so, do we have another person who is saying that they were notified that they have been made a member of the board? Somebody else?
Yes, but that process has not been finalized, so we are reaching out to the governor's office. So.
Okay. Members, when you wish to speak, please state your last name for the record. For the record, public members calling in to the public phone line are asked to email April Fleming at april.fleming@dhsoha.state.or.us and provide your first and last name. Public and interested parties' feedback may be heard during the public and interested parties' feedback period if indicated on the agenda. Everyone is asked to use appropriate language, manners, and protocols when conducting board business. The meeting is called to order.
Oh, thank you, Clayton. Go ahead.
The first order of business is the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to do that?
This is Chris. I make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Is there a second to that motion?
Nels Bass, I second the motion.
The motion has been made and seconded to approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor say aye. Please do so by stating your name.
Clayton, sorry, you have to go through like roll call kind of. So you would do Nels and then, you have to, it's harder when we're all on the phone. Otherwise everybody will talk at once.
Okay, by the roll call, who is in favor of that motion?
Just go through the, so then just say Nels, yay or nay.
Nels, yay.
Christopher?
Yay.
Grant?
Yay.
And Clayton?
Clayton, yes.
Perfect. Okay, Clayton, you should have another script. It should be on the second page. It says entering into executive session.
Yep, forget that. The Board of District Technology will now meet in executive session pursuant to ORS 192.660 sub 2 sub F and ORS 676-595 for the purpose of considering information related to confidential information exempt from public disclosure at 9:10 a.m. on December 2nd, 2020. Representatives.
Sophie, this is Heather. I'm going to interrupt. The citations are incorrect on that script.
The citations are incorrect? Oh, yeah, she's got the wrong ones. Sorry. So it's pursuant to ORS 192.6602F, ORS 192.3559A, and ORS 40.225. Now you can go ahead.
Okay. Representatives of the news media shall be allowed to attend the executive session by conference call and will be provided further calling instructions shortly. The public phone line will be muted for the duration of the executive session. Are there any representatives of the news media on the public phone line?
No.
We will now adjourn to executive session.
We have to read the recognizing there is no news media.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Recognizing there is no news media in attendance, the public phone line will be muted during the duration of the executive session. We will return to open session before taking any final action or making any final decision. We will now adjourn to executive session.
Perfect, thanks you, Clayton. All right, so we are now on item number 4. So in your materials, for part of the board meeting materials, there should be a issue statement that talks about how Clayton Reese is currently the acting chair for this year. However, you do have to elect a chair every year. You're welcome to continue having Clayton be chair, but you do have to elect, meaning do a first, a second, and a vote and all that. You might want to ask Clayton if he's willing to. And then Clayton's his board service does not run out until 9/22 of 22. So he will be, unless he chooses to resign, will be on the board all of next year.
I would be glad to continue in that capacity. I mean, when we have one meeting and then the next, a year later we have another one, how hard can that be for a chair?
Well, this is Sylvie. We're hoping to have 3, you'll see in the next item on the agenda is there's 3 board meetings for next year. The reason we couldn't have board meetings is because we didn't have a quorum. So we have to have a quorum in order to even have a meeting. So hopefully, we will have 3 meetings next year.
Yes.
And this is Nels. We have a new member coming on possibly, is that right? Can you tell us who it is?
Well, Paige is reaching out to the governor's office at the moment. Ron Ferris says that he had received some information from the governor's office. However, we do not have record of that. And then we also know that Todd Young has submitted an application but has not been Senate confirmed. So as of right now, there is no other board members official, but there are 2 potentially in the works.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And this is Sylvie. The reason Nels is probably asking is because Nels is serving until replaced. So his term was up in February, and he's graciously continuing to serve until replaced because we have currently 2 vacant positions, and so we have to have 4 people in order to have a meeting.
That wasn't why I was asking. I was just curious. Actually.
Well, it sounds like Clayton's willing to continue serving as chair, so if somebody would like to make a motion of that sort.
This is Nels. I'll make a motion for Clayton to continue as the chair through 2021, I guess. And this is Chris, and I second that motion.
There is a motion made and seconded to have Clayton Reese continue as board chair through 2021. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye and state your name, please.
Nels, aye. Chris, aye.
Grant, aye. And Clayton, aye.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Good.
Good. So there's no further discussion or information that's needed for the chair. So we'll move on to item number 2 under item 4, 2021 meeting date. You should have in your packet of materials the meeting date. And they are stated as Monday, February 8th, 2021 at 9 a.m., Monday, June 7th, 2021 at 9 a.m., and Monday, September 27th, 2021 at 9 a.m. And if there are no objections, we will ask for a motion to approve those dates.
This is Nels. I make a motion to approve those meeting dates in the future.
Is there a second?
This is Grant, I second.
Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded to approve the meeting dates for the Board of District Technology for 2021. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion to approve the meeting dates for 2021 signify by saying aye and state your name.
Nels, aye.
Grant, aye.
Clayton, aye.
Christopher, are you still on there? Christopher?
Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I was muted. Yeah, Chris, aye.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
A motion to approve the dates for 2021 meetings has been approved. The last item under item 4 is proposed rules. And again, you should have in your packet the proposed rules for cultural competency and continuing education.
Yes, this is Sammy. So House Bill 2011, which passed in 2019, mandates that certain healthcare professions, including dental technology, have a number of cultural competency courses in order to renew. We have several boards that have fallen under this category, and the red information that's in your packet is kind of the general idea of how we're going. It would be 1 credit of CEUs once every 2 years, and you would attest to that. And then there's certain places where you can get the education, you get through an approved health authority course, or an educational institution, or if the health authority makes something by rule, then that you can do that. Also, the board can actually also make a list on the website. So that's kind of where we're at, and this is how we're rolling it out. Now, there is one question I had. A licensee may carry up to 10 continuing education hours forward to the next meeting. We're kind of doing away with that language. I just wanted to make sure that you guys were aware that that was something that we're going to. It's very hard to track and maintain for not only the practitioner but also the office. So other than that, it's pretty straightforward.
This is Sylvia. There's also legal issues with carrying continuing education forward when the requirement is to do annual continuing education.
This is Chris. How long or how recently were licensees able to carry forward? I didn't know we could do that. Not that it matters now. I just want to bring that up to our association members, make sure they know that they can no longer do that. But I guess my original question was, how long or how recently were we able to do that?
Hold on one second, let me look that up. It was a while ago, I want to say 10 years. Let's see. Looks like 2013.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Sammy.
You're welcome. So if you don't have any changes, basically what would happen is, well, this date's wrong on the schedule because we canceled it. So today is November 2nd, and the board approves it. There is going to be some kind of fiscal impact, which I'll go through and work with Ann on what she's reported out, how much classes may cost, if there's travel time, things like that. And the notice will go out, not November 1st. It's a very bad schedule. I'll send out a new schedule to you. So it would be probably January 1st, and then it'd go on 28 days, have a new hearing, public comment would end, and then hopefully your February meeting, might have to work around that. I'll send out a new schedule and see what we can come up with. Maybe get it done.
This is Sylvie. One of the reasons that we're wanting to do this so quickly is that this goes into effect for anybody who's renewing after July 1 of 21. So we kind of want people to know in advance of, hey, this is coming, just so you know, if you renew your license on July 2nd, you have to have cultural competency as part of your continuing education. And so we also, Sammy, did you send out information in advance that letting people know that this was coming?
Yes, it got posted to the web and sent to all denturists. Yeah,
so we sent out, we did some communication out to denturists, informing them that this was coming. Because obviously we don't have control over when it goes into effect based on the House Bill 2011. So that's why we're trying to hurry and get it done. And Sammy's rule schedule here, obviously the dates are wrong, but that was intended with the meeting that we had planned earlier, and it hasn't been updated since. So she'll have to update that.
Could adopt them on the June 7th meeting, and they could go into effect July 1. That's kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah, so most likely it'll be July 1, you think, instead of March 1?
Yes.
Because of their February 8th meeting?
Correct.
Got it.
And we could do pre-information like this is coming.
Yeah, and so we'll do out another email out to all licensees so that they're aware. So we're going to amend the rule schedule, because what we need you guys to approve is the draft rules and the rule schedule. So the rule schedule is going to change from, obviously today's date will be the where you adopt the proposed rules, and then you said January 1 is when the notice of proposed rules will go in the Oregon Bulletin.
Yeah, I'll have to have a hearing sometime after January 15th. I'll have to look at the calendar.
So mid-January there will be a hearing. All this will get posted.
Yes, I'll email everybody.
Right, but they need to approve it now. So,
yes.
And then last day for public comment will be January 28th.
Mm-hmm.
And then at your February...
No, June 7th.
They would actually be able to do it if you end on January 28th on February 8th.
Maybe I was thinking.
So then on February 8th at your board meeting, you'll consider all the public comment that she got in January regarding the rules, and then you'll adopt the proposed rules to permanent. If you make any changes, that'll be done then too, and then they'll still go into effect March 1.
So I don't know who this question is for. So this proposed rule about cultural competency, this has been already set in place, or we have the option to adopt or reject this at this point, or where are we with that whole thing, with the cultural competency continuing education?
So this is Sylvie. It's part of House Bill 2011. So that House Bill should be in your packet. But in that, it requires this is now to be required. So that's why we're putting it into rule. So it's the law regardless if it's in rule, but if we put it in rule, then it makes it clear to the licensees on what they need to do. And it gets real convoluted. So if you look at the bill on page 2, the requirements of this section do not apply to a person. So that's why it gets a little convoluted. So it doesn't apply to somebody who's retired and not practicing. It doesn't apply to, so it's weird, and then you get to do it every other year. It's not every year. So if you look at the top of page 2, it talks about how every other time that the person's authorization is subject to renewal. So, but it is all in the law. Go ahead.
And that's this is something that's already law, like we can't stop this or change it at this point.
That would be correct.
And there's a list of these classes that we now have to take about cultural competency on the website.
So they are on so we don't have the list. So the DHS, or is it DHS? Is it OHA? OHA.
Office of Equity.
Office of Equity Inclusion has classes out there, which is where it says in the bill that the Oregon Health Authority shall approve the continuing education. The board shall accept as meeting the requirements of this section if it meets their authority. So they already have a whole list of these classes out there anyways, because several different professions have been having to do this, and then they just added on more professions that have to do the cultural competency. So they already have a ton of those classes out there. Some of them are free, some of them are expensive, some of them pertain to your profession, some of them totally don't. So there's a whole list of those classes out there. And typically what happens is if a company wants to do the class, they submit that class to them, and then they get added to the list. And then licensees can just go out there and look at it and register for a class or take a class. But we did 1 hour, so it's only 1 hour every 2 years.
Okay.
And just a thought, when they do complete the continuing education for cultural competency, is that document, they should receive some sort of document confirming attendance and completion of that training, and then is that sent to the health authority, or what do they do with it?
So this is Sylvie. So what the licensee does is they hold it onto it and keep it in their file, and then if they were to get audited by the office, then they have to provide documentation of the continuing education requirements.
Yes, okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, this is Ron Ferris. Can I interject?
Ron, no, not until the public comment period.
Okay, thank you. Understood.
So this is Chris. So what you're saying is we would go through a process as far as voting on it today, and then it would go up for public comment, and then it would be finalized in the coming months of 2021. You said like March?
Correct. So what you guys are going to do
Okay.
do today is to adopt proposed rules. It's a formality. So today you would adopt proposed rules, and then they go out for the public comment. We collect all that public comment, and to have a hearing, which then somebody could give a verbal comment if they wanted to. And then we will come back to you at the February 8th board meeting, and you guys will take into consideration all those comments. And then at the February 8th meeting, after you've taken into consideration those comments and made any changes if necessary, then you would vote on permanent rules, and those permanent rules would go into effect on March 1st.
Okay. And this is now, but this is already a law, so that's just a formality.
Well, the law does not say 1 hour, so the public could come back and say that they want you to take 10 hours of cultural competency. I doubt they would, but they could. So there's pieces of it that are not in law. But for the most majority of it, it is in law, yes.
So we can't say we don't want to do this.
That you don't have that option.
So this is Chris. How did the 1 hour, which I'm not arguing with, but how did the 1 hour fee get decided upon?
We put it in there as a starting point. If you want to change it, you're welcome to change it. You can make it more if you want.
No. I'm not in favor of making it more.
Yes. Well, the thing is for one, we don't have complaints on this. For two, that's a requirement. You must do it. So you must do at least 1 hour every 2 years. So we figured, we could always increase it later if it becomes an issue or a concern that we need to address. But as of right now, we figured 1 hour every 2 years should be enough.
Okay. I think considering that it's the law, which it's not something I'm in favor of, but considering it's the law, I think 1 hour is a great starting point. That's my opinion. And do you foresee that 1 hour being bumped up later in the future?
I don't think so. I think the biggest thing, because I listened in on when this bill was passed, I think the biggest thing is to make it mandatory that people have it. A lot of the testimony is a lot of people voluntarily take it. A lot of hospitals require it for all employees. However, there's a lot of individuals who work in the medical field who don't necessarily work for a hospital. So that was kind of their talking points when they were passing the bill, is that if we make it mandatory, most people are already doing it anyways, but then we're going to catch anybody who's not doing it. So that's kind of what the testimony was about. And you can see on the bill on page 1, all the boards that are currently listed that have to do this. And so obviously you guys are S on there, but there's obviously a whole lot of other boards that have to do the same thing. So all those other boards are doing exactly what you're doing right now.
This is Clayton. Just a question about the time that's required to do this training and having resources that provided. Will this be on the iLearn website?
No, iLearn is more of a government-based learning program. Usually people who do these cultural competency courses are either associations or private sector, but there may be some iLearn courses that are out there. You would have to go out to the Office of Equity and Inclusion's website because they have all that stuff. So I do believe on our website we'll have a link that takes you to their website so that you can look at all the different classes.
Yeah, I just in terms of the other required trainings for workplace behavior and sexual harassment, those kinds of things are on the iLearn website, and it seems to me it would be advantageous to the folks in this profession rather than going out to a private meeting. They could still do that, but it's just the expediency of being able to do that 1 hour training and at the same time have it documented.
I agree. I am not disagreeing with you in any way, shape, or form. However, in order to log into iLearn, you have to have an OR number. And in order to have an OR number, you have to be a state employee or a board member, because an OR number is given to you by our HR department. So licensees wouldn't necessarily have that. There are some classes that are allowed that you do not have to, quote, log in with your OR number in order to get, but they're kind of a little bit different than the normal iLearn class. Anybody else have any questions, comments, concerns on this new proposed rule? Okay, well, if somebody would like, other than Clayton, to make a motion to adopt the proposed rules and the amended rule schedule, that would be great.
This is Clayton. I would move that we...
You can't, Clayton. Clayton, you can't. You're the chair. You can't.
Sorry.
Yep.
Right. Yep, sorry.
It's okay.
Okay, this is Chris. I vote that we adopt the proposed rules and the You'll have to help me out, Sylvia.
The amended rule schedule.
And the amended rule schedule.
Perfect. And somebody like to make a second other than?
Grant, I will second.
Grant?
This is Grant, I will second that.
All right, thanks, Grant. So Clayton, you have to do your roll call thing.
So the motion has been made and approved, or seconded, that we approve the proposed rule schedule for the draft rule language. Any further discussion? If not, signify by saying aye. No?
I vote nay on this one.
Mr. Burke?
I vote aye.
Grant?
Aye.
Clayton, aye.
All right.
Okay, moving on.
Moving on.
Under item 5 on the agenda, report. First, the director's report.
Okay, so this is Sylvie. Just a few little quick things. We haven't met in quite some time, and so I'm assuming I haven't given you this whole spiel that I've given most of our other boards, but our office is obviously closed down due to the pandemic, and so individuals are only allowed to come to the office via an appointment, and by appointment only. We do still have to allow individuals to test to be able to get licenses. We still also administer some, obviously you guys are one of 16 boards that we, and programs that we regulate. So we have some boards that need to still take practical exams, they need to take written exams, and so that's what the appointments are for. We do not have appointments for you just to like renew a license or to come in and get fill out an application for something that doesn't require a test. All of that stuff has to be done through the mail. So we have a very skeletal staff in the office. One of the directives from the governor's office is for everybody to work from home as much as possible. And so it's a very unique situation here in our office. It's very unique times probably for pretty much everybody. The other thing is when all this started, we stopped for a while not having meetings and then had to figure out how to get board meetings up and running. And then in October, we got approval to get a program called MS Teams that will allow us to start visually seeing each other. As long as you have a computer with a camera, it also allows for individuals to be able to call in that don't have a camera. And so the board members, hopefully, any board meeting we have after January 1, we will be using MS Teams. So we will be able to see you and you will be able to see us. However, we do not have an avenue yet for the public to do that part, so they will still be able to call in and listen. But they can also go and watch the recording later. However, the recording is pretty small and you don't get to visually see as much as you'd probably like. So eventually we will get MS Teams into where the public will be able to log into that. But right now we're just trying to get it up and running and get all the hardware and stuff that we need and the logistics in order to get that running. So hopefully at your February meeting we'll be able to visually see each other because we will still not be open to the public. The other big thing is legislative session doesn't officially start until February, the beginning of February. However, we currently are working on a lot of legislative concepts that individuals are bringing forward. I've already had probably 10 that have affected this office, so we get them pretty much daily. I'll keep you informed of that, but that's one of the things. It's going to be an awkward legislative session because, again, we will not be able to meet in person. So it'll be a lot of virtual meetings, a lot of webcam stuff, which is interesting when you're trying to speak to the legislators, and there's usually about 15 of them and one of you, along with a whole bunch of other people that want to talk at the same time. So it'll be interesting, but that's kind of what we're working on here in the office. Any questions on what I just said? Okay, well then let's move right along to the licensing and the fiscal report. So in your packet, you should have a few charts. The first one is just the licensing statistics. These are broken out by quarter. Mind you, our fiscal year and quarter is different than everybody else's, so I can explain that to you if you need to, but this just shows by fiscal year, licenses issued and renewals processed, and then percentage of individuals who renew online. Obviously, people are allowed to renew through the mail, but that renewing online is going up because of the fact that we are also closed to the public. So, the next slide shows of the active licenses broken out by age and gender. The orange means that those, because we do not require you to identify as either male or female, so you're welcome to leave it blank. So obviously we have individuals who have not identified as male or female, which is what the orange is. But you do have one individual who is between 82 and 89 who has an active license. The next slide shows the long-term trend. So this just shows the denturist and then the temp and the trainees. And so the temp and the trainees, those numbers, you know, you want them to be consistent, obviously, but that line, I mean, you on average, you have 6 trainees going on a time. So that would, one would assume that those 6 are eventually going to get a license, but you guys are pretty steady. Next slide. You're welcome to stop me at any time if you have questions. Next slide shows your financials. So it shows several years there. Again, our fiscal years. So if you look over, not to the last column, but to the second last column where it says 2020. So 2020 is the fiscal year. So that's actually July 1 of 19 through June 30th of 2020. And that's how our fiscal years work. And then it shows your cash balance, which is the same number of the bottom from the previous year. Then your revenues, expenditures, net operations, and ending cash balance. And your cash balance just continues going forward to the next year. So that none of this money goes away. But you'll see there that your revenues, so in 2019 and in 2020, your revenue went down significantly. One of the things that we did was offer, what was it? No, it was HAS. I always do that. I always do that. Was there something we did with these guys? We lower their fees. Did we lower their fees?
We haven't, we talked about it last meeting.
Because that's you know,
Yeah, we
$13,000. No, their revenue went down.
Oh,
Yeah.
we had talked about,
So what's the difference between what we did in 2019 fiscal year? So that's July of 18 to June of 19.
we didn't do a fee decrease.
I know, but their fees went from, maybe, do we offer a discount or anything?
No.
Yeah, that's $13,000 difference. That's huge.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we got a case.
This is Chris. Didn't you offer a discount if they applied to renew online?
I do believe, I'm getting my book out. Yes,
Oh, yeah.
individuals who renew online receive a $150 discount.
That's still happening.
That's why. Whew. Okay. Good catch. See, I can't even remember what happened last week, let alone last couple years ago. All right, any other questions on the financials? And you're welcome to ask. Down on the bottom shows how the allocations are divvied out between all 16 boards and programs. So I think some of you are new to the office and this board and how this works. So if you'd like me to explain that, I totally can. Or we can move on. Does anybody have any questions about the financials? You guys are easy. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so under policy report, we have an educational program information, so hopefully you guys have read this. And Cynthia is here in the room, and she can answer any questions that any of you may have. If you've read through this already, then ask away. If you don't have any questions, we will move on. Does it make sense to everybody about what she says about Bates, Nate, and George Brown?
This is Chris. It does make sense. Kind of surprised to see that, but it does make sense.
Yeah. And so, just so you guys know, just because somebody went to one of these schools and comes and applies doesn't automatically mean we say no. What it means is they can't just automatically say, we can't just automatically say yes. So, we do what we call, it's an internal lingo, we call it piecemeal. So we need to see, where did you have this, where did you have that? And so we have to go through and make sure that you have all the credits. So just because you graduated from one of these places doesn't necessarily mean you automatically get, because you now have to show us where you have all the things that you need. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So in each of those schools, there's a list of things that they don't meet requirements on. So you could go to George Brown and then fill in those final requirements piecemeal style and still get a license through the state of Oregon?
Potentially. Each person is going to be a little bit different because they may have what they need. But if you just send us a diploma or I graduated from, we actually have to see your transcripts, and we actually have to sit down and break it out, because we know that it's not a requirement from those schools to meet all of our requirements. So we actually have to look at it, and either you don't have it and now you need to go get it, or oh yeah, you took that like as an elective or before you went to one of the schools, or who knows. So we just do each individual person on a case-by-case basis versus the blanket.
Okay.
If you graduated from one of these, you automatically, because that's how we used to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just surprised some of those schools don't offer some of those basic things.
It's not right. It's not necessarily that they don't offer it. It's just that it's not required by them in order for you.
It's not part of their requirement.
Right.
General anatomy and physiology. And anyway, never mind. I'm going off on a tangent. Irrelevant.
Yep.
Okay.
And it's
Continue on.
Yeah,
Sorry.
and it's not like we didn't try to work with them. I mean, this was a long time coming, and until we just can't do a blanket approval knowing that they don't meet the requirements of the 103 hours that we require. So
Okay, thanks for the explanation.
absolutely. Any other questions before we move on?
This is Chris. How recently have some of these programs been lacking at the Oregon state level?
Well, as far as I know, none of these schools are in Oregon.
Right.
So are you talking about?
Okay.
Yeah. So what had happened is we had a couple of applicants who came in, and we were noticing that they were missing some stuff. And then we did the deep dive, Cynthia did the deep dive on the individual schools and got information from them and communicated back and forth with the schools. And then it's like, okay, we can't do a blanket anymore. It doesn't mean that we don't approve somebody who went to Bates. We just need to look through everything and make sure you have all the different requirements that we require. And if not, hey, you need to go get 3 hours of A, B, and C.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay. All right.
Okay? And we'll continue working with the schools. I mean, if they change their catalog, they change their course requirements, they change to match up, great. But as of right now, it does not, because you as a board have agreed upon, here's exactly what the minimum curriculum requirements are. And then the office's job is to make sure that whatever requirements you guys set, somebody meets that. And when they don't, then the individual has to meet it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Any more questions on this? You guys are good. All right, moving on. Oh, these are out of order. The agenda and the paperwork are not in the same order. Because in the paperwork, regulatory report's next, and on the agenda, regulatory report was before the policy report. So Bob?
Do I have to go?
Yes?
This is Bob. This is Bob Awful for the record. So the regulatory report is still showing 3 biennium, but that was as of November 15, and I can tell you that we've closed a number of cases since then. So I'll just go through what you're looking at. 15-17, we had a total of 19 complaints received, and this report is showing 9 open, 10 closed. The 17-19 biennium, we've had 20 complaints, 5 remain open, 15 closed, and the current biennium, 12 complaints received, 4 remain open, 8 closed. Sorry I'm so long-winded. Are there any questions?
So this is Sylvie, not to add to the reason that some of these old cases are still out there, is that part of the pandemic also included a complete freeze on any hiring of staff and personnel. And Bob is down extremely short on investigators. So he normally would have 5 investigator positions, and I do believe he's got 3 filled. So just a little short. One of his investigators moved over to my unit, and he's had not been able to fill that position due to everything that's going on in the hiring freeze. So.
And this is Bob. One investigator is dedicated statutorily to long-term care.
Yes.
And that's all she's working on.
Yeah. So we're trying really hard to, and he just did some reorganization of duties with his investigators, so which is why he's getting some of these cases closed. So it doesn't mean that we're not addressing them. It's just there's only so many hours in a day that people can work. And there's 16 boards and programs that these investigators have to deal with. So it's not that we're not addressing them, it's just taking a little bit longer, and Bob's trying his best to get them all closed out. So, any questions?
Good answer.
Probably Paige.
Paige, is that you?
Yes, it's me.
Okay, I just want to make sure we didn't lose somebody. It made the little beeping noise. We're right at quorum. So, all right. So let's move on. So I've got a couple rules that the office adopted right when the pandemic went into place. So I just kind of want to go through those with everybody. They're in the office's rules. They are not in your specific board rules. There are there's one board that has some very specific to them rules. So one of the groups that we also license and regulate are respiratory therapists. And if you know anything about the pandemic that's currently going on, respiratory therapists are pretty much the busiest people you've ever met in your life right now.
We're running out.
So we wrote some real quick temporary rules and then made them permanent to allow for respiratory therapists who are retired to be able to come reactivate, and also for respiratory therapists to go from state to state to state to state without having to go through all the requirements to get a license in Oregon. So the first one that's in your packet is talking about how individuals need to stay in compliance with the governor's executive orders and the guidelines. So the governor and the public health comes out with guidelines and expectations that individuals and businesses are supposed to follow. And so as you know, we also do inspections, not necessarily with this board, but with some of our other boards, and then licensees. So if the governor's office and public health gives the directive to somebody to do something or to not do something, as in to shut down, This helps give us, we already had the authority to do it in our statutes, but this puts it in rule, so it's very clear to individuals that they are to abide by that executive order in order to maintain their state license. Does anybody have any questions on that one? Okay. Next one is the continuing education. So we did this one obviously because it's a little hard to get your continuing education in person at the moment. And so this allows for self-study and online and all that kind of stuff during the emergency when obviously social distancing is an issue. So we added that, and then the other thing is the late fee. So if you were current and active on the date of the declared emergency, which was March 8th, I do believe, then your late fee got lowered to $1. If you were not current and active on that date, your late fee is whatever it was, depending on the board. So you don't get to, just because you chose to renew during the pandemic, to have it only be $1, but you weren't active on the date of the emergency. So that was the other thing. Obviously, you know, several businesses and licensees were not working for a while, and so I couldn't get it all the way down to a 0. We had to charge something, so we figured $1 as low as we could go. Any questions on any of those? Crickets. Okay. Clayton, you are on item number 6. You should have a script that... Okay.
At this time, the Board of Intertechnology will hear public interested parties' feedback. Members of the public, please wait until you have been recognized. Once recognized, please state your name and affiliation to the board for the record. So do we have any? I heard Ron at one point. So the period for public input is now open.
So this is Sylvie. Anybody on the public phone you would like to speak, please unmute your phone and state your name.
Yes, Ron Farah, thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Ron.
I know. Hi, everybody. I know. Don't say new normal or I'll slap you, but this is a new way of doing things, and I think you're doing it eloquently. Thank you. But, yeah, the questions I had earlier when I chimed in were answered, but I do have one page here talking about the educational requirements versus the existing blanket for base in Alberta and George Brown's IE. What I've highlighted here was two things. One, it says the only previously approved program, the American Insurance College, would has come a long way. Hats off. Everybody's doing great. I think what I remember following this was the American Insurance College has come up with a lot of, what's the word I'm looking for, curriculum that not in excess by any means. It's great. And I think because of that, it may have exceeded some of the usual and customary existing that the other colleges did. So, you know, staying with this and making sure the other colleges keep up with those requirements is very important. And with helping me with that, the paragraph just below that, it says, a comparison chart has been attached which includes the minimum credits required for each educational area within the board's adopted curriculum and the number of credits each educational program is currently providing. I didn't get that in my packet.
It wasn't attached.
And where that brings up is the piecing together that has always been usual and customary, and I'm just so glad it's available. A person going for licensure does a 2-year degree program in the laboratory classroom, but they still need to get some of their other credits that they teach from these other degree programs. I kind of like to see that paragraph and making sure the applicant is meeting those requirements. Does that make sense?
So this is Sylvie. Ron, we just noticed, because I just dig through my paperwork too, and it's not attached. So we'll get it attached to the materials. We'll get it sent out to you and to all the board members.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. It just, I think it's moving forward, and it's a good thing. I just haven't read it in print in an extended period of time, so we want to find out what that is. Thank you.
Thanks, Ron. Go ahead.
Basically, that's all I have. I have some issues on the stuff that's going to come up with some comments and voted on in February, but it's not time sensitive or anything, so
Okay.
I'm good.
All right, perfect. Thanks, Ron. Is there anybody else on the phone that would like to make a comment? I will take that as a no. All right. Okay, back to the, excuse me, the board members. We are on item number 7, which is other board business. Does anybody have any other board business they would like to bring up? Okay, well, next board meeting is February 8th. Hopefully, we will have MS Teams up and running and operational, so we'll be able to see you, and it won't be so awkward not being able to see each other. Okay, you guys are awfully quiet. For not meeting for like over a year. You guys don't have a whole lot to say, which is fine. I'm not trying to force anybody to talk, but
Well, we're still suffering from Thanksgiving hangover.
yeah, right. Well, and not being able to have other people at the house, then it's like, oh, then it took forever to eat up all the food because it was like, I don't know how to cook for less people. I just don't think it's like feasible to ever cook less. But anyways, Clayton, you do have a one-line adjournment that's on your first script page.
Got it. At this time, hearing no further comments or issues brought to bring before the board, we will adjourn the meeting at 10:25 on December 2nd, 2020. The board is adjourned.
Thanks, Clayton.